This video is all about Investigation 5, using logical reasoning. Now, we learned in Investigation 4 that a conditional statement contains a hypothesis and a conclusion. Now, the hypothesis is the if part of a statement, and the conclusion is the then part of the statement. For example, in this conditional statement, if an object is a fruit, then it will have seeds. The hypothesis is that the object is a fruit. If an object is a fruit, so the if part is the hypothesis. And the conclusion is that it will have seeds. Then it will have seeds. So the then part is the conclusion. Now, that is review from Investigation 4. I know all of you didn't do Investigation 4, so I thought I needed to throw that in there as well. So the if statement is the hypothesis, and the then part is the conclusion. Now, all conditional statements have a converse, an inverse, and a contrapositive, and we're going to talk about what those things mean here. To write the converse of a conditional statement, you reverse the order of the hypothesis and the conclusion. So basically, you switch the part that follows if and the part that follows then. Now, if still comes first, but instead of the hypothesis part, you have the conclusion part. For example, if our original statement is, if a figure is a triangle, then it has 3 sides. To write the converse, we still write if first, but we write the conclusion after the if. So if it has 3 sides, or if a figure has 3 sides, then, and then we write the hypothesis part in our original statement. It is a triangle. So to find the converse, you're basically just switching your if and then statements. To write the inverse of a conditional statement, we negate both the hypothesis and the conclusion. Now, by negate, I mean we say the opposite of those things. So in this case, it says, if a figure is a triangle, then it has 3 sides. To negate both of those things, we would say, if a figure is not a triangle, then it does not have 3 sides. So this says, if the figure is a triangle, this one says, if it is not, then it has 3 sides, then it does not have 3 sides. So basically, we're saying the opposite of both the hypothesis and the conclusion. Now, it's important to remember that if your original statement uses the word not, then your inverse will not use that word. So if this had been our original statement, if a figure is not a triangle, to negate that, we would say the opposite, if a figure is a triangle. And finally, we have the contrapositive. Now, to write the contrapositive of a conditional statement, we switch the hypothesis and the conclusion, just like the converse, and we negate both of them, just like the inverse. So we're sort of combining the converse and the inverse. We're switching them, and we're negating them. So our original statement says, if a figure is a triangle, then it has 3 sides. To write the contrapositive, we switch and negate. So we write if, and then we write the opposite of the conclusion. A figure does not have 3 sides. So see how we've moved the 3 sides part to the beginning and said it's not true. Then it is not a triangle. So we've moved the if part to the end and said the opposite. So converse is when you switch the if and then statements. The inverse is when you negate the if and then statements. And in the contrapositive, you do both. You switch them, and then you negate them. Now we're going to do some examples. We want to write the given statement in the form indicated and note whether the new statement is true or false. And if it's false, we want to give a counterexample. So in number 1 here, we want to write the converse of this statement. Now remember, converse means we switch the if and the then statements. So it says, if a number ends in 5, then it is a multiple of 5. So in order to write the converse, we still write if first, but instead of a number ends in 5, then we want to say a number is a multiple of 5. So we wrote if, and then we wrote the conclusion. So now, to finish it, we write then, and then write the hypothesis. It ends in 5. So our original statement, if a number ends in 5, then it is a multiple of 5. Our converse is, if a number is a multiple of 5, then it ends in 5. Now, we need to know whether this is true or false. We know that numbers that are multiples of 5 can also end in 0. So this statement is false. And a counterexample would be, for instance, 10. 10 does not end in 5, but it is a multiple of 5. So this implies that if we pick a number, any number that's a multiple of 5, it will definitely end in 5, which is false, and our counterexample is 10. Now let's look at number 2. We want to write the contrapositive of this statement, meaning we're going to switch the if and then negate both of them. So our original statement is, if two lines are parallel, then they do not meet. So we want to always start our sentence with if, then we write the opposite of the conclusion. Okay, so the conclusion says the two lines do not meet. The opposite of that would be the two lines do meet, or if the two lines meet. So there's our new hypothesis. Then we write then, and we finish by writing the opposite of our original hypothesis. So our original hypothesis is that they are parallel. The opposite of that would be they are not parallel. Okay, so our new statement says if two lines meet, so if you have any two lines that intersect anywhere, then they are not parallel. Now that is a true statement, because if two lines do not meet, then they are definitely parallel, because if they're not parallel, at some point they will eventually meet. Number 3, we want to write the inverse of the statement. And the inverse, remember, means we are just negating the hypothesis and conclusion. So there's no switching here, just negating. If it is Monday, then I will go to school. So my hypothesis is if it is Monday, and I want to write the opposite of that. So I will write if it is not Monday. And my conclusion is then I will go to school, and I want to write the opposite of that. So I would say then I will not go to school. All right, so this new statement says that if you pick a day, any day that's not Monday, then you will not be going to school. And we need to evaluate whether this is true or false. Okay, so this is definitely false. If you pick some day that's not Monday, there's still a chance you might be going to school. An example would be, for instance, Tuesday, or Wednesday, or Thursday, or Friday. All right, number 4.